Hello, welcome to Truth Talk. It's Tuesday, November 24th, and it's Thanksgiving week. Normally, we talk about the current state of all of our communities and some things politics and some things, racially profiled or COVID related. But today, we're going to be turning our attention towards Thanksgiving. There's been a lot of changes, and we're seeing Thanksgiving like we have never seen it before. We're experiencing it so much different on so many different levels. One, a lot of people don't have the Thanksgiving meal that they've been used to for decades in their family. We're used to having people who don't have, but we're also used to having it to give. And this year, due to all the COVID restrictions and shutdowns and loss of jobs, the people who normally would be able to give a meal to those in need find themselves in need themselves. We also have more COVID restrictions, and they're updating daily. California got new restrictions in just this morning, and I'm sure some other states have as well. And with those restrictions come isolation. A Thanksgiving where families can't or shouldn't been warned not to travel. Families that, whether they are obeying the COVID restrictions or just they're afraid to expose a loved ones to this COVID-19. Whatever the reason, we're separated this Thanksgiving. We're finding ourselves alone. So what we want to do on this show today is talk about all things Thanksgiving. And joining me to do that is our wonderful panelists. And we have, of course, Bill Coffman. Bill,
hello,
thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we have Brandy Hunt.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you, guys. I want to ask you guys, have you guys been hindered this year of joining Thanksgiving with your families? How have you been affected by Thanksgiving and the COVID restrictions? But before I want to do that, I want to invite those listening. We also are going to have another segment called Things That Make Us Go, Yeah, you know those things that just it makes you a double take in your mind. We're going to talk about some of those things that make us three just go, what in the world is that talking about? And that's just a little bit of fun and humor, but some serious discussions as well that just makes us scratch our head a little bit. So Brandy, Bill, how are you going to plan on spending Thanksgiving this year?
Well, my family has decided to split into two households. So during the day, we're going to one aunt's house, like half of us. And then at the end of the day, we're going to the other, because, we have to eat twice on Thanksgiving anyway. So we decided to split. So some of us are going in the early part of the day to one house, and then in the evening we'll go to the other house. And our whole family is right here well, not whole family, but like our immediate family is right here in Greenville, Greer, Spartanburg. So we're kind of still central to each other. So that's what we decided to do.
That seems like a good, reasonable decision, like good planning. We always have, our house is the hub, has been for years. because that happens to the old people. We're the old people now. We got all the kids, and we became the hub. But this year, it's not really going to happen that way. We're going to have my oldest daughter, her husband and child moved to North Carolina, so they're not coming. My mother-in-law and father-in-law live at our house, but they're actually going to go to another family member's. So I've got my 2 kids that are still at home, my third one that's not at home, and Barbara and I think that's it. That's tiny. My household, there's usually standing room only for Thanksgiving.
Wow. Yeah. My family normally, well, here in California, we've been invited to some friend's house this year. Well, last year and this year, but of course that we're not doing that this year. She chose not to have anyone over. We also had a pre-Thanksgiving dinner planned in Arroyo Grande, where Bill lives. But that as well was canceled due to all the COVID restrictions. So we've had multiple dinners canceled, gatherings canceled that, we look forward to every year. It's people we don't get to see all the time. So we've had a little difference in our family. So it's going to be me and my husband is in town and, our children here for Thanksgiving. We're going to do it up, and enjoy it. But I want to talk about some things that we can do even though we're apart with our family, with our friends. There's many people that I'm hearing that have no one. They're actually going to be alone for Thanksgiving because they have closed themselves in, because they're either vulnerable to this disease or because of the restrictions just placed upon them by their community, their government. So what are some ways that you guys have come up with that you can share Thanksgiving with people not in your home?
Well, the one thing I will first say is make sure that you reach out to somebody. If you start feeling like the walls are closing in on you and you really feel that breakdown coming, do yourself a favor and at least reach out to somebody and say, hey, can you talk to me for a few minutes? I'm really feeling the weight, because I don't think it's just going to happen on Thursday. We also have Christmas coming. And so this is probably like a practice round to even more for some of us, more major holiday is going to be Christmas. And so I think the whole year we've pretty much been preparing, been alone, especially if you live alone or you have like a child, maybe you have a spouse, you've already kind of just been doing this thing by yourself. And then to watch other people maybe take the risk to go be with their family, you're like, oh man, maybe I should have took the risk. So you start internalizing what's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with any of us. We're just all trying to weigh these waters together. Just like we are right now. Me and Melanie over the summer, we would jump on Zoom and be like, hey, I just needed to see a face. Like, I just need to see a face that I love and know and trust. And if I had to cry, I would cry, scream, whatever you have to do. Don't feel obligated to be strong in the season. I keep telling people that don't feel an obligation to feel like you got to have it all together, have all the answers, do it right. None of us know what right is. We're just trying to do it the best way that we know how, that's been sufficient for us and our family.
You know what you said, Brandy, so important for people because, and especially I think even more now with social media, everybody puts forward such a good impression of themselves. And I understand that. You don't want to put a bad impression of yourself out there. Right. But it's a little false. It's like, you got, hey, look, we're on vacation. My kids are happy. Everything's good. Because right then when that picture was taken, that's true. 10 minutes later, somebody's screaming and pulling somebody's hair and,
right.
That's just reality, and then you're like, why did we come? We're going back. Rah, 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 Everybody goes through that. So what you say is true. With the world we're presenting of this almost perfect life for me on social media, when it's not at all. And another person might be a little deceived by that and say, boy, look how good everybody else has it. When they really don't. And because humans, we're a hurting group of things. We pretty much all going through the same stuff. When I was a young man, and I still am, I'm the guy that I really love crowds because I like people. But I also am perfectly fine with being by myself in driving around in my own. I even said I could probably be a long haul trucker. You know, I could probably do it because I got my radio and my brain, and that's enough for me. And I'm sure I would be happy. But I also love 1,000 people standing over there, and I want to go see what's going on. So that's me, and I don't worry too much about stuff. But that isn't always normal. I know that, and I can't think that everybody else feels this way. And I'll finish that story up with this. When my oldest sister was about 30 and I was about 25, she told me, hey, I'm going to counseling, and I finally feel good about myself as a person like you always have. And I said, like, I'm a good person. And I remember telling her, I was only about 25. I go, oh, you're missing the point there, sis. I said, I don't feel good about myself as a human like I'm a good man. I just happen to know we were at dinner, just had brother, sister dinner. I said, I just happen to know that everybody else in this place, even though I don't know their names, got a lot of problems. So since they do and I do, I'm fine. That's all. I don't look around and say, oh, I'm much better than them. I'm not. I'm the same. They all got problems, so do I, so I don't worry about my problems too much. And that's, I can't say that everybody feels that way. They don't. But it helps me to get through things like this with actually no scars, while other people have tremendous scars over these things. And it's not about being strong. I think part of this is just your genetic stinking makeup, just the way you look at stuff in life. So
it is. And you know, you guys brought up such powerful conversation pieces, because it is true. And I urge everyone, you know, if you're alone and having a hard time, don't go to social media for the holidays, because it is a picture perfect. We put up what the best is. We don't put up the mess. And if it is messy, it's really messy. And, you know, so the norm isn't there. The reality of everyday life is not on social media. You know, I have so many plants in my garden that are not looking good, but I will not post those. I will post the plant that is beautiful and gorgeous and shows me with the green thumb. And that's what social media is about. But this holiday season, people have already been stressed out and tired and scared and alone already for months and months on end.
Yeah.
So here comes the holiday that reminds all of us of what Thanksgiving is about. Tells us that we should be thankful for things. It's so hard to be thankful for things when you are going through it. And it reminds us of the family, the friends, the ones we lost. You know, I had a conversation just earlier with my niece. My sister died of COVID, and it's hit me every day. She was like my buddy all my life. She's the only one who's known me all my life. And it was such a hard thing. It still is. And so for people who are suffering, we need to reach out to them. Like Brandy said, go back through your contact list. Who have you not talked to in 3 months? Call them, because maybe if you haven't talked to them, maybe other people have not either. So we need to take time between now and Thursday and Friday and the weekend to call people.
And be careful not to do what people that call me usually out of the blue do, which is start off, how's everything going? Can I borrow money?
Right.
I'm just kidding. People don't do that to me too much. I was just playing. But
no, and so we have to be mindful of that. And also, you know, just be mindful. And I want to remind people just up front of one scripture that came to my mind while Brandy was talking, and that is of Psalms 136. And it goes on, and it describes different situations. But then after each situation, it says, but his love endures forever. And I want to remind people, this show is going to be kind of light today. It's going to be kind of fun today. But we got to remember, in the heaviness of life, God's love really does endure. And he will allow you and give us, each of us, the ability to endure this season of COVID-19, of restrictions, of isolation and change. And sticking with God, we're going to come out on the other side. It might be different, but we'll come out on the other side. So reach out to people. But I want to get back to something a little bit lighthearted for Thanksgiving. I found this great thing. Well, I didn't. My son did. My son found this great thing. It's called Jackbox TV. And I'm going to show you a little bit about it. Now, it's going to cut my face off, but you guys will be able to understand it and see it. It has different games, and you play over like Zoom and your cell phone. So you get on Zoom, but then you go to Jackbox TV on your phone, and it gives you a code. You can play across the country, right? Doesn't matter where you are. You can play as many people as you want in this game. And so you play on your phone. The Zoom will show the instructions, and then your phone, you'll interact with it by answering the questions on your phone. And it does things like picture drawing. I love this one. So like the drawing that someone did, they got silent judgment, and someone has to draw that, and other people guess what it is.
Oh,
and so it's kind of like picture it, right?
Yeah.
But it's really cool. They have word games. While I talk, I'll just show you a couple more. The Clockwork Orange, some of the things that we drew over the past. And this is we played with 3 different households, this game. And it works wonderful. It's real time. And then if you choose, now forgive this picture, okay? If you choose, you can actually make t-shirts out of your drawings. And so we did that for Father's Day because Mark was out of town, and we made pictures to celebrate and got together at a later time with our shirts on to kind of celebrate that. So you could do that and play on Thanksgiving, and then have shirts later on for everybody to wear and have fun with that. That's just one thing that I love that game. It's wonderful. It's fun. It connects you in real time. And because you're on Zoom or something like Zoom, we always use Zoom for that game. You're interacting, also watching a movie together with your family on Zoom. I don't know if you guys have ever done that. So what kind of suggestions have you guys been able to come up with this week?
Also, bingo. You can you basically just print out a bingo card, email it to everybody. They can either print it or pull it up on their phone, tablet, whatever. And then just like if we were in person, we could do all the giveaways, or how a lot of people play bingo differently, but our family likes to put money in the pot. So we can all have like Cash App, $5 to such and such. And then whoever wins bingo gets the pot. If you don't gamble in your family, don't do that one. But, just, if you have gifts or just to have fun, period, have a call sheet and then play bingo like you normally do. What else did we do? Bible trivia. So there's a app for Bible trivia. And so we just downloaded the app, and then we had a person to call out the questions and then do the answers. In any trivia game, actually, and the Google store has tons of trivia. So whatever your favorite, it can be television, it can be movies, it can be whatever. There's so much trivia, just word scrambles, whatever you like to do your trivia on.
Brandy, when you said bingo, it made me really smile because you said it just like that. You go bingo, and then, like, here's my answer, bang. But the reason I think that's so funny is because when I was a young man, when I was a young warthog many years ago, there was the Leslie Nielsen movie where he was this bumbling cop called The Naked Gun, and he opened the bad guy, who was Ricardo Montalban's desk drawer. He's looking for the clues. And he opens the drawer slowly, looks in, he goes, bingo. Then he reaches in, pulls out a bingo card and sets it down, then continues to look for stuff. Well, I thought that was so funny. Of course, I was young, and I just thought that was hilarious. So as a cop, I have many, many times said that. Whenever I'm looking for something, I find it, I go, bingo. But I'm just doing it because of Leslie Nielsen in the movie. So when you said that, it just really made me smile. And that is what interactions, I can speak correctly, with other humans do. The scripture says that we sharpen each other as swords, and they sharpened their own swords on each other. That's how they did it, to make them razor sharp. That's what we do. That's what my new friend Brandy and I are doing for each other. My longtime friend Melanie and I do that for each other. You two longtime friends do that for each other. That's the important thing. Yeah. And that's what I think Thanksgiving's, we got to remember that. And Christmas, you said something, Brandy, that this may be just the beginning. So my brain went back to sports real quick, and I said, okay, so 2020 was the preseason. This is the regular season, and Christmas and New Year's is going to be the playoffs. And because it's kind of building up to that. And, you know, it's going to hurt some people. There is no doubt it's going to. Now, if you're one of those people, goodness gracious, if you just have a friend, let them know. You don't even have to call people and say, I'm hurting. You just call somebody up and say, hey, do you see the game? Or I don't care what it is you like. I went on a bicycle ride or play golf today. I don't care. I'm not a bowler, but I bowled today. Yay. You know, whatever. I don't care. And grew some flowers. You'll get it in kind. You reach out to people. They're probably a little lonely through this season too. So you reaching out, you may be killing two birds with one stone.
So in the Bible, the pandemics, I don't know if they called it a pandemic in the Bible, but when they had seasons of drought, they weren't like little small droughts. They were like years at a time, like 7, 12, you know, long years. And so this could be the beginning of something that's going to be a while. And I think we need to learn what they did back in the day in Egypt when he said, I'll be your daily bread. I think when we used to, you know, those biblical things that we, you know, I'll walk through the valley of the shadow of death, they sound good until you have to actually do them. And so when he says, I'll be your daily bread, means that you may not know where you're going to eat tomorrow. You just got to be worried about today. And I actually had that happen. I was someone's daily bread, and I was going to the store. I usually don't grocery shop on Sunday. And I decided to stop at the grocery store and then go to the store across the street so that I could just get it all done for the week. And this lady was sitting on the curb when I went in the store, and I said, and she was just sitting, she had bags though. So I said, well, she has money maybe because she has like a Dollar Tree bag and a Dollar General bag. So maybe she's just waiting for a ride. So I try to mind my business. And so I walked in the store. When I walked out, she was still sitting there and she looked to be older. And so I walked over and I said, are you okay? Because that's one thing in this season. We have to check. You don't have to know people to just say, are you okay? She might have been like, yeah, I'm fine. But she said, no, I need a ride home. I can give you that. If she would have said, I need $100, I would have said, I can't help you, but I can pray for you. And she said, a lady told me that my help was coming and that an angel would come and save me. And you were my angel for the day. And I was like, okay. So I took her home, and, you know, she was like 72. And she's like, can you go to the ATM? I don't know how to use the ATM machine. My husband died. And I'm just out here trying to figure. So people are just not even the pandemic itself, but people just trying to figure out life, and sometimes just being a willing vessel and a helping hand. She didn't know how to be she's like, I don't even know how to order a Uber or a Lyft. You know, she's like, I called 25 people that I knew had cars, and they were all too busy to pick me up. And I was like, man, it's the world we're in. And so, you know, the preacher preached that morning that it may be a season where you may not have all the answers. And we're a society who usually has all the answers. You can get everything delivered in a drop of 5 minutes. You can get a ride, you can get food, you can get groceries, you can get whatever you want just by going on a computer, and it gets delivered to you. And we think God is the same way. And I'm not going to preach, but we think
Appreciate you.
Because that's what we're here for.
Have all the answers. This is a season where we have to trust that God is still the God that he said he was going to be, which is our daily bread.
But I want to piggyback on that because, you know, this is Thanksgiving. And if we're truly thankful, it's not to be thankful for all the material things that we have. Right. You know, one thing I think this COVID season has taught us, or should have enlightened in us, is that there are so much more things more precious than material items.
Yeah.
It looks confused.
Can you hear me? I like material items way too much. No,
I like it too. But
I'm just teasing.
No, but
I actually the guy that goes down in window shops. Most guys don't do that. No. Barbara's the one that doesn't do it. I'm the one that will look at stuff I'm going to buy 5 years from now. I'm like, I'm going to buy that. I can't afford it today, but I'm buying that.
Well, okay. Well, I'm gonna go back to what I was saying. And now I can't think of the
I'm
thing.
sorry. I really am. I just thought it was
what I'm
humorous.
saying
You were
is this.
talking about how much more important
What I'm
things are
saying
than material.
is that
Don't
the
be
Bible
thankful for the
talks
material.
about, if you have an extra, give it. If someone is in need. But I think if you have one, you give it. We are each other's. It talked about in the book of Acts how everyone brought their everything to each other, right? Into the apostles and the disciples, and there was no lack in that town. There was no lack at that moment in that community. And if we were to really individually say everything I have belongs to the Lord, and if someone is in need, I am free to give it to them, even if it's just my only pair of shoes. If we're walking out in the street and it's freezing cold and there's someone that has caught your attention, your spiritual attention, and they're without shoes, give your shoes. That's Thanksgiving, because can we be thankful enough that we give away what we've been given, and not foolishly? I'm talking about, as the Holy Spirit leads you, because you don't take everyone into your car, do you, Brandy? But the Holy Spirit led you to that woman and said, yes, this I can do. So we have to be willing to be that vessel when we go out. But I think with this COVID stuff, finally getting to the point, I have to ramble a little bit to get to my point sometimes. With this COVID stuff, it's harder for people who normally have a hard time. Like what you said, the lady who her husband died and she wasn't technically savvy. And before COVID, there would have been a lot of people out. There would have been banks that were open. There would have been people that would have helped her. But now you can't find people because we're all isolated in our own little homes. And if you don't know technology, you kind of are lost.
Yeah.
And so we should teach the older generation how to do. It's uncomfortable. I know in one of the churches I participate with, or used to participate with, the elderly got really dismembered when COVID hit and everything went on Zoom. And it was the older generation that no longer had a church because they didn't know how to do Zoom and they didn't want to know how to do Zoom. But if you go in there and you show them and say, listen, it's uncomfortable at first, but the benefit is community, it's relationships. If you go and sit at their doorstep because they don't want to let you in, you just sit and talk through the door for 2 minutes. It's all the difference in the world. It just really is. But we have to go around the bend to help those who don't know.
And Thanksgiving, which is a time that we've celebrated for all my life, and then periodically through time, people have done it. But the one that we always think about is the 1621, there in northern, Massachusetts area there where the bay and everything, you can go put your foot on that rock that they landed at, those, what we call the Pilgrims. They were actually called separatists, and they had separated from England and gone to Europe, mainland, because they weren't allowed to have their religious freedom. And then they came back to England for just a little while, got on some boats and came over to this new world. Okay. And then the point of this is they started off with over 100 people. And 1 year later, not even a full year, they only had 50 people left, a little over 50. They lost half of their people that winter. And that was harsh, but they were still alive. And now things were starting to grow. And because they were farmers, they knew how to grow stuff. They went out and, there was wild game around. They got some of that. And they said, why don't we do a feast to thank God that we're still alive? But literally half of the people that left with them 8 months earlier are dead. Your wives, some of your children, all that kind of stuff, your husbands. This is what really happened. So we get a rosy picture of it sometimes, but it's not rosy. It was very difficult for these people. And then, the Native Americans came, and that really did happen. That's a true thing in history. that is amazing, because it isn't really normal for human nature to say, I just lost half my people, but I'm still going to be thankful. That's not normal in history of mankind.
No,
and then you
not.
got a group of people that are kind of right now are going to be natural enemies through most of this new world that's happening, but they weren't, not right then. Now it did happen that they became enemies. I understand that, but not right then. And we can't maintain that level of thankfulness, I don't think, or even doing what's right too long as humans. But I think they did strike a pretty good high mark right there that I think we're still trying to do every November. That's what we kind of remember, the high mark. I mean, like I said, it was tough for them. It was not easy, but we still look back and say, hey, let's be thankful for what we have, instead of just being a little greedy, which most of us might fit into that category.
And talking about that, we're going to segue a little bit, because we have a comment from Vincere Otomori. And I kind of want to talk about, we're going to segue into this halfway into things that make us go, whether it's about the government or politics or just silly stuff. But I know one thing that makes us all three of us, and most people that's listening, go, is the way that the politicians have kind of decided not to waste this crisis of COVID. Now, I say that because I believe that COVID is real. Listen, COVID is real. There's no doubt about it. It is a real thing. It's killing real people. But the politicians on both sides of the fence are using this COVID to gain whatever their agenda is. So I want to go to this comment and see if this makes you go, So Vincere says this, and I'll show it on the screen, that Biden and Dems will push for forced inoculations for COVID, contact tracing, see something, say something, and vaccine certificates, making these certificates a requirement to work or to travel. And he also says here that they will also push against the First Amendment rights by censoring all dissenting voices. Now, I think he has two good points. One is the conversation of vaccines that may or may not be coming out very soon, before the end of the year or right after the end of the year. So does that make you think that, agree or disagree? How the vaccines, if they come out, right? Now, I disagree with the forced inoculations, because here's the choice. Now I want you guys to clean it. Here's the choice. If you say vaccines are a choice to use, but you put restrictions on, if you don't get a vaccine, you can't do this. You can't be in public places. You can't work in certain areas. You can't work with children. You can't do certain things. Is that freedom of choice, or is that a forced vaccine?
It's coerced at best. Yeah. That would be a coerced.
It is, right?
Yes.
So there's a possibility that will come. And I think that what makes me go on this is the willingness for people to not see what's going on in their own, like to actually see, like this. Some of the things that I don't understand. All right. Some of the things that make me go that just has to do with this stuff is and here's just a lighthearted one. It is Dancing with the Stars. Dancing with the Stars. Let's line it up. Dancing with the Stars. Here's a picture of Dancing with the Stars last night. Now, we can't go and be around our family. Even if my son comes to my house, he's supposed to have a mask on. But here, all of these people can be around each other, do a show, not wear a mask, and not stand 6 feet apart, but it's okay because they're entertainment. I don't understand. Right. Like my thing is, how can people accept what the government is saying on our restrictions when there's so many exceptions to the elite? Are we that strived for entertainment that we don't turn the TV on and see this and say, they're not living the way we're told we have to live. Because if I go outside with Brandy and we're not 6 feet apart or wearing a mask, what's going to happen to us? You know, we can't do that. We cannot do what they're doing. So I'm going to give that to you guys to talk about.
Well, I think a lot of times I've brought it up many times on this Zoom thing. It really hits my mind all the time. There was an old song back in the 60s that talked about there's people in the street, they're carrying signs, mostly say hooray for our side. And I can tell you right now in my own household, I've listened to conversations where, like, I happen to be an old football player and I love the game. And so they're playing football again, and they're up there playing football. And I've listened to people who don't really like football say, why are they allowed to do that? But they love Dancing with the Stars. And they're like, well, but I want to watch that. And so I'm like, it's the same thing, just in two different venues. And that's all. So if you're okay with your side doing it, you should be okay with the other side doing it. If you're not okay with the other side doing it, you shouldn't be okay with what you think doing it. But we don't do that as humans, okay? I'm not asking for people to be perfect here. I just noticed the contradiction in conversations that I have right around me, because what's happened is the government, and I'm not an anti-government guy. I'm a cop, for God's sakes. I'm not against the government. I'm not anarchist, but at the same time, I think it has way too much power in people's lives to make decisions for them, and they're not making it for themselves. Now, that's my opinion of the whole thing. But if you give up that much power, then it's going to be a bunch of contradictions, because the government's just run by people who are very contradictory. So in California, our governor has now put a bunch of new restrictions on, as Melanie and I are both Californians, and a lot of new restrictions, with the caveat that the now entertainment industry, they're removing those restrictions at the same time so they can make more movies and stuff. Look, I'm fine with it. Make more movies. I'm okay with it. But I see that as an interesting, it's a pretty hypocritical position when you actually say, okay, now you individuals who aren't wealthy and aren't rich, you need to go ahead and stay not working, and I'm going to give you $1,200 every 3 months to keep your mouth shut and stay at home. Yeah. Now you rich millionaires and billionaires that are going to support my campaign, you can go back to work. Now, maybe I'm being a little cynical, but it looks like that. Well, but it is put too much emphasis on the government controlling stuff.
Right. But, I don't blame the government, okay? Because like you said, they're people. They are in the government. They made their position either, by power, by money, by influence, by hard work, by however they got to the position they are in. So they're going to do what they want is best for them and what they believe. I don't blame people for that.
Right.
But where my attention goes is to us as a people. In the Bible, they were going to build the Tower of Babel, and God said, disperse them, right? Lest they reach the heavens, disperse them, change their languages. If we as a people would see the hypocrisy, that the governor of California can go to a dinner and not wear a mask and be indoors, but we can't. But we still listen to the governor. If, you have Nancy Pelosi, you can go get her hair done, but we can't. Where's the people outraged that, wait a minute, why are we being restricted time and time and time again, but yet the government is not? Like one restriction today. We can't go out and buy as much toilet paper as we want. It's toilet paper restriction in California. I would like to know how much toilet paper is in the politicians' homes. Did they know ahead of time? Did they get a full warning that the people, this is where I go, is I'm not against government, but I'm not blinded to the government and what the hypocrisy of it is. And why are people just sitting down saying, sure, like New York City, Cuomo, his 80-something-year-old mother was going to travel to his house for Thanksgiving with his sisters traveling. But yet he told all New Yorkers not to gather for Thanksgiving. And no one cares. Like, I don't understand America, that we don't care about stuff like that. Because that now I will say he retracted that. They're not gonna, according to him and his spokesperson, he's gonna work through the holidays. His family is not gonna come into town. Okay, so I will say he retracted that. But the problem is this is happening and we're just taking it. And how much this is a thing, it will snowball. If you give someone, what's that old adage? You give someone an inch, they take a foot. We're giving them our freedoms a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time. And I think it's dangerous. What say you?
Well, I mean, it's definitely dangerous, but what pushback do you feel like we have at this point?
I don't know if we have any. The problem is, at least that's a really good question, Brandy, because I don't know what to do, and I'm not going to pretend I do. But as I love history, and as I look to the people in the world, not the United States, before the United States, if you go back to the serfs of Europe, or you go back to the slaves of Egypt, or even in the Bible days, or whatever, I don't care. You go the peasants of the Tsar, that they had there in Russia. The human beings have not been too free throughout most of human history. And then starting a couple hundred years ago, well, about 400 years ago, really. And you got guys like John Locke and different people like that start writing these ideas. And then you get these people talking about freedom, and you watch these revolutions start taking place. The successful one was the United States, because we still have the same constitution. There actually isn't another one that has the same government set up from back then. France had one right after our revolution. It's gone through 33 different governments since then. We still have the same setup. So that's kind of an amazing situation. But it's an unusual thing in history that mankind ran himself. Pretty much the governing class, and that was the people with the most power, they told everybody what to do. And the only way they got out of power is somebody showed up with more soldiers in the history of mankind. Okay. Then starting a few years ago, we tried to do that different. And we seem to be going better every generation, trying to strive more for individual liberties. I had that one quote by, I didn't want to mess it up, so I put it on my phone. Patrick Henry, when he was talking about give me liberty or give me death. A lot of people, they know what that little saying, but he was speaking right before the Revolutionary War, right before it, in a place called the House of Burgesses thing. It was a political group, and there wasn't a war yet. The Revolutionary War hadn't started, but he's saying it's already begun in the wind. That's what he kind of says in there. But then he says, why stand here we idle? What is it that gentlemen wish? What would they have? Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, Almighty God. I know not what course others may take, but for me, give me liberty or give me death. Now, that's a very dramatic speech, and there's no doubt that it was. And we still remember it to this day because it was so dramatic. But he meant it, okay? He was saying something he meant, liberty over peace and security. And right now, I'm not certain that the generation that we raised, people, me, 50-year-old people, and older than me, I'm not certain that we didn't raise a whole generation of people that had to be in the car seat, had to have the helmet, had to have this, can't walk down the street without, mom and dad present, can't do this, can't do that. Got to be safe at all costs. All costs, you got to be safe. I'm not sure we didn't set them up to do exactly what's happening, which is government. I don't want my freedoms. I want my liberty. I don't want my liberty. I want my security. So you make the decisions for me. Now, I'm oversimplifying it, but I do see this as a trend of the modern time. It's a scary trend to me. I hope it reverses, because I certainly wouldn't want my I'll be dead, but my great-grandchildren run around going, oh, good, I have food and a house, and I don't have any other decisions to make. Well, that's called a serf in Europe, right before they came over here and said, forget this, I'm going to the New World. And so I don't want that for the future. I hope I'm not trying to make it a conspiracy. I think it's a spirit of the time, a zeitgeist. People go this way.
If we're so afraid to say things that sounds like it's a conspiracy, that's silencing our own self. I think people will get to know who we are on this show, and they can ask us, what do you really believe? Who are you? But I think we can't be afraid of sounding like something and then having people say, oh my goodness, what are you, a conspiracy theorist or not? My necklace just fell off. But I want to just show this because I think Vince said this. Let me find it again. That he said this. He says the COVID restriction will go as far as long as the people will allow it. And I think that's true. And Brandy, you asked, what do we do? Like, what is our role in it? Right. And this might sound like a conspiracy theorist, and I'm really not. But I do believe that if we continue to let them take our freedoms on the basis of this, listen, this is what bothers me. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to nail the horse one more time. I know that wealthy people, I grew up wealthy, part of the society in New York and all that. So I'm not speaking from what I don't know. They care about their loved ones in life. They value life. I can probably tell you Trump values his family and life, right? Biden does. All the politicians you see, they hold dear to their livelihood and their life and their family. Do you think that they would be going to dinner with 12 people if they didn't know something that they're not telling us? Because why would they risk it? Why would they risk it? You think that getting a hairdo is worth them getting COVID? See, there's something that is not being said to the public, whether they have some kind of cure for it that's fast-tracked like Trump got, because I'm telling you what, if he had COVID, that's the fastest COVID I've ever seen, you know? Or whether they know that this whole mask and 6 feet is just something to give us security. It doesn't really work anyway. It's just a security measure to make us feel good. I don't know what the answer is, but I know if I go outside with my family and we don't have masks on, what's happening to us? We're being told, why are you doing that? Why are you risking? You don't care about humanity. But if they do it, it's okay. So I look at it like, what do they know that we don't?
All right.
That's the question I have. I don't care if it's Democrat or Republican.
Right.
What do they know that we don't? They're not afraid to gather. They're not afraid to take off their masks. They're not afraid to do that. If it was something as potential as they said, they would be hiding and wearing a full-on wetsuit or something to cover themselves. You know, so that's my problem is there's definitely something that isn't being told to the American public while they're putting restrictions on us. I believe that is just not to waste the crisis. Let's get it, see how far we go. If we don't go, they can't take us there. Is that true?
Right.
Well, that's true, especially since we're a group of people that actually vote. But you have to go and vote in your politicians and vote out those you disagree with. And you better pay attention. Don't just vote for the D or the R. Don't do that. You know, don't. That's a dangerous situation. I've always thought that it was dangerous to do that. Listen to the people you're going to vote for and see what they're saying if it agrees with you. Now, once again, if you're one of the people that says, hey, I think you should be locked down in your home, I think that's the most important thing we can possibly do, then you've got politicians that agree with you. If you think the other way, like maybe, you know, like I don't think that's important. Well, not important, but that's not the most important thing. Then you got some politicians that agree with you and you have to vote them in because those are the ones that do make the decisions. And by the way, I'm going to go so far as to say most of them, I'm not thinking they have ulterior motives. Like I'm just sitting in a back room somewhere going, I'm going to take over the world. What are we going to do today? Brain, you know, same thing we do every day.
Thinking of the brain.
Take over the world. And I don't think that. But what I think is that people start going down a path. They get their team. This is our team. This is what we think. It's what we do. And they start pushing it. And they do push. And then you have pushback from the other team. So then you try even harder. And the problem is the people in the middle
for us
get absolutely smushed. And it's very dangerous when you give that much power to a centralized anything. Now, Granted, once again, I'm actually not believing this is a conspiracy from humans. It might be from the spiritual world, but humans, I don't think so. However, the end result's going to be the same if we give up too much freedom, because you don't, in case you haven't noticed, when you give up freedom to the government, they don't give it back. Okay. It doesn't happen that way very often. I think Ronald Reagan gave a whole bunch of freedoms back to the people in the States.
Well, I'm going to tell you something.
And he pushed that for 8 years. Everybody keep gathering more to themselves. And I don't even think that they necessarily know what they're doing. It's probably a big picture that's very spiritual, and I don't understand it either. But I know it's true. And by the way, those 10 amendments called the Bill of Rights aren't what the government is allowing you to do. It was the states, before they ratified the Constitution, they said the federal government does not have the right to infringe upon these things. Period. It's not that they're giving you the right to freedom of speech. You have the right to freedom of speech, and they can't take it away. That's the 10 amendments: freedom of religion, right to bear arms, freedom of the press, right to assembly, all these things. The first 10 amendments were because the states wouldn't sign the Constitution without this Bill of Rights saying these are rights to the states. We've turned that around. We're turning it completely around. We're giving all of our rights to the government to be safe. And so anyway, I've said that too many times, I'm sure. I'm probably boring.
So I want to go to Brandy. She said that, something that makes her go, Brandy, is that people who complain and do nothing about it. Why does that make you go,
It would be to me that if you didn't like something, you would do something to change it. Now, obviously, some things take a lot of effort, a lot of time to make the change, but put one foot in front of the other. They always told me Rome wasn't built in a day. Do you know how many days it took? None of us really know, but they always tell us it wasn't built in a day. So we at least know that it took at least 2. So if even when I think about Noah had one message: it's going to rain and I'm going to build my boat, and then get on the boat for the people that was going to be saved. But can you imagine starting with a plank or whatever, building block he had? And I'm not a biblical scholar yet, but had it ever rained, or it hadn't rained in like 700 years or something like that?
There's controversy on that. Some say it's just the canopy that was engulfing. Other people say that was just at the beginning, but it's very likely that they didn't even know what rain really was.
Right. And here you have this man building something called a boat for something that's never happened. And God tells us one little thing to have faith on, and we're like, oh, we need all the answers. It's just, start with something small. You can't be a complainer and a life changer. Double-minded man is stable in all his ways. We're either going to believe God or we're not.
True.
If this is the end, so because we've been preaching Jesus is returning soon since I was born, and I'm 40. So I came out the womb hearing Jesus was coming soon. If this is the end, we can't stop it. We can't stop what is inevitable. But if this is not the end, but it is, I hope I say his name, but Vincier said this is a great reset. It is. We have definitely been reset. Who's to say that we are not where we're supposed to be? Who's to say that? Who gets to say we are where we're supposed to be? So at the end of the day, yes, the good news is God always wins. And if you do the little part, just the little part, and stop complaining, nothing changes by complaining. I've tried it. It doesn't work. And so if it doesn't work by just complaining about it, do something that you can do. Little. And then I think it says, to whom much is given, much is required. And so if God gives you little, he'll turn around and give you much. But if you don't use the seed that he's giving you, he'll even come and take that away.
Yeah.
But when you said,
Melanie, let me say one thing to what she's saying about the second coming, because I think it's really important. Something I've learned this year that I didn't know before. And I've been teaching on eschatology. That's the big word that, talks about the end times. And I've been teaching on that stuff for years. And I've always told people that, and I believe this, look, things change slowly. They don't change overnight. We in the West have a lot of freedom. This Antichrist guy shows up, the son of perdition. When he shows up, you're not gonna have any rights, individual rights. Well, that can't happen overnight. We're not gonna give those away overnight. This is gonna have to be a process. I have said that multiple times. And I've said, so I don't necessarily look for it to happen tomorrow. I think we're in the end times. I believe that. But I don't think like, oh my gosh, it's all done tomorrow. Because I see too many things still need to happen. I just see, it's 2 days away at least.
Right.
And I see too many things that need to happen. But one of the things I used to say had to happen was people had to be okay with giving up their freedoms. And they're going to hand them over to the Antichrist for security. Now, I've said that, but I've said that's going to take generations. I've said that, and I don't believe that anymore. This year has made me say, oh my gosh, we will change overnight as a group of people. Overnight.
And I think we're in the process. I believe with you. We're in the process of that. But it's, if we go with it, it comes quicker,
Right.
If we go with it, it comes quicker. There's a testing ground. I do believe it's like, how much will we take? How much will we give up without a fight? How much will we do? How much will we obey? Things that don't even make sense, things that aren't logical, things that you can't comprehend. And just blindly say, okay, if the government says it, we do it. That is the process of what we're doing, is giving up our rights. And the one thing I don't like people saying is, oh, the end is going to come. Jesus is coming, so just embrace it. I don't know that we're supposed to go willingly,
Right.
into the lion's den. I think, God's going to raise up some people with wisdom and understanding and knowledge to try to help people say, wait a minute, let's do it God's way. If we got to get to the end times, that's for sure. But we got to be in God's will when we do it. So I think that, to close up, because we do have to close up the session, when Brandy talks about doing something and Bill talks about making a change, it is not, everyone thinks we have to change the laws, we have to change the politicians, but no, we just have to change what bothers us in our life.
Right.
So what bothers me with this COVID restriction? I have to figure out, how does God want me to change my way of doing things to be able to live within this? For
Right.
me, it was starting Truth Talk. One of those things God said, all right, you can't go out and speak to the masses anymore. You can't hold conferences live. Get on board. Do it this way. This is a way God showed me to do it, what he wants me in my life. So we just have to ask God, this is what's frustrating to me. This is what isn't settled with me. This is what's become more difficult. How do you want me to handle it? If we individually go to God and say, God, how do we handle this thing that's angsting us? This thing that I can't quite comprehend? He'll show us what to do corporately and individually. And we'll get through this and we'll be triumphant, because as Vincere says, the good news is that God always wins. He really does. So this Thanksgiving, we thank you. Thank you, Vincere, for commenting and chatting with us throughout the whole show. I couldn't air every comment you said, but thank you for doing that. And he agrees that we have to do it God's way. And I do invite Vincere to come on and be a guest panel when he's ready and when he wants to be here. We look forward to that lively conversation. But think about each other this Thanksgiving. It's in 2 days. Cooking, playing games, joining family, or being apart and being alone. Either way, we at Truth Talk pray that you will experience the love of God by either a stranger or a loved one. That if you feel lonely, you will reach out. and reach out to us here at the Ministry of Truth to Hear. I'm going to put that information up. Well, yes, I'm going to put that information up for you so you will know where to go. Here we go. If you want to reach out for prayer in this coming days and weeks ahead, go to www.truthtohear.org. And there is a link to leave a prayer request and a phone number to call if you would like for that companionship during the holidays. But thank you for watching today. May God be with you. We'll see you next week, same time, Tuesday at 2 p.m. Thank you, Bill and Brandy.
You're welcome.